As you all know, we have been utilizing Zen City, which is a civic engagement platform, for 3 functions. The organic function, a passive tool that allows us to see insights and trends in public digital community conversations that are filtered by various factors, including geographic area, topic, and sentiment. The engage function, which is a public portal that allows the city to obtain feedback on different initiatives and projects and different services. And then what we're hearing about today is called the community survey. The community survey is a survey that allows city government to obtain community input and meaningful feedback on life in Akron. And you'll hear today, it's everything from what folks believe is working to where they see need for improvement. And we will be able to run this survey continuously over time to see how we're doing in comparison to prior results. So I am going to introduce some people who actually understand and can talk about statistics in ways that I cannot with Zen City. Dr. Rachel Levenstein is with us, and Lauren Hoffman. And I just want to give props to Zen City for a second. Lauren has been one of the most wonderful customer service representatives I can imagine. So we've had a great relationship with them so far, and I'm really looking forward to the presentation of the results of the first community survey done through Zen City here in Akron. So I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Levenstein.
Thank you, and it's great to talk to you all about the community survey results in Akron. I'm going to share my screen, and while I do that, just a little bit of context. So I'm Rachel Levenstein. I'm the director of, I'm the head of survey research at Zen City. I'm your survey methodologist on staff, so if you have any questions about the methodology, I'd be happy to help with that, and I'll talk a little bit about it up front as well. As you know, as just stated, the community survey is a way to gauge community sentiment around quality of life and community characteristics, including some city services. This is conducted on a recurring basis. So this is your first cycle, the first cycle of data, and in the future we'll be able to see some trends over time. A little bit about the methodology. 632 respondents were recruited over social media, mobile app ads, local websites, and survey panels between February and March 2023. And an additional 398 responses were gathered by the city. Those responses are included in the online dashboard and the feed in the open-ended responses. The data that I'm going to mostly cover today is going to be focused on the 632 respondents that we collected. And we separate these out because we aim to have a sample that is representative by age, gender, and race and ethnicity. And so we want to keep kind of our methods of recruitment specific to gathering that data. So the way that we did that was to create targets based on Census Bureau data for age, gender, race, and ethnicity. And we reached those targets during the data collection process. After data collection was completed for this cycle, we did an adjustment called break weighting, which further balances out the data so that no demographic group is overrepresented or underrepresented. So I'm going to start out by talking about overall satisfaction. We're going to jump right into the survey results. And overall satisfaction is a combination of results from our quality of life questions and our community characteristics section. So the way we created these scores was to take the average of the quality of life scores, the average of the community characteristics scores, take the average of that together, and then assign a positive, neutral, or negative score to that. And so 58% of residents in Akron were satisfied with life overall. I want to point out something. I know there are some other vendors out there who do community surveys, and typically what they do is they'll combine the positive and the neutral together. The idea being that the negative responses are the ones you really have to pay attention to. But we actually break it out a little bit differently, and we allow you to kind of look at the neutral as well as the positive and the negative, because this is the group of people that could go positive or negative. So while they might not be extremely satisfied or extremely dissatisfied right now, we want to kind of put that out there to show that there's this group in the middle. So here are the main measures of satisfaction. These three questions right here are our quality of life questions. So 37% of residents were satisfied with the overall quality of life in Akron. And 30% were likely to recommend Akron as a place to live. And we can see here that it's split about three ways. So about a third of them also were not likely to recommend Akron as a place to live. In terms of living in Akron 5 years from now, about 53% of residents said that they would be likely to do so. And when we take all of the community characteristic questions together, about 54% were satisfied, and around 44% were neutral. Only a very small number were dissatisfied with the community characteristics as a whole. And I'm going to jump into those in just a few slides, but for now I wanted to kind of dive in a little bit more on the overall satisfaction and talk about the geography. So we wanted to look at overall satisfaction by different wards. I'm sorry, is there a question? Yeah. Okay, I will continue. So wards 1 and 8 had a higher satisfaction rating than the other wards, and the lowest was wards 2 and 5. We don't see a lot of differences aside from wards 1 and 8 with the rest of the city, but I thought that just stood out and was worth noting. In terms of demographics, we do see some differences by demographics. We see that residents age 55 and older were a little bit more satisfied than the younger age groups. And we also see that those with a higher education degree were much more satisfied than those with a high school degree or less, or some college or college degree. We also see some gender differences where men were more satisfied than women, 65% compared to 53%. And we see a slight difference by income, where 66% of residents in this middle income category were satisfied compared to 54% in the lower income and 53% in the higher income. We don't see any differences by race and ethnicity, though. Okay, so let's turn to those community characteristics. So I mentioned before that the overall satisfaction is a combination of the overall quality of life and the community characteristics. So we asked a series of questions about how satisfied residents are with each of these. So 62% are satisfied with the access to quality healthcare services, and 14% were not satisfied. So these little dots above, the red dots are the not satisfied, and the gray is neutral. There's another slide of this, but I just kind of wanted to go through a few more. 50% of residents were satisfied with the quality of parks and recreational amenities, and 22% were dissatisfied with that. And when we go to the other community characteristics, we sorted them by overall satisfaction score for each community characteristic. At the bottom was the sense of overall safety. So only 20% of residents were satisfied with safety, and 47% were dissatisfied. There were also some concerns in the survey data about access to affordable childcare. 23% of residents were satisfied, and 29% were dissatisfied. And then overall cleanliness and maintenance, that was also at 23%, with 39% being dissatisfied. So this was a lot. There are a lot of different characteristics, and so what we wanted to do to kind of help you make a plan and help you focus on what the next steps might be is to identify characteristics that are strongly related to the overall satisfaction score and received a relatively high or a relatively low score. So this is kind of the strength and the area to focus on. So the strength here would be the acceptance of residents of all backgrounds at 40%. And I'm going to dive into a little bit into some other characteristics. So looking at this by demographics and geography. The focus on area is the overall safety. And I want to emphasize that safety is an issue across the country right now, but this is a notably low score relative to what we've also been seeing. Okay. So when we look at acceptance of residents of all backgrounds, we do see some differences here. So wards 1 through 8, 52% were satisfied, and about 32% in Ward 7 and 9, and around 40% for everybody else. So there are some differences here by geography. By age, we see some slight differences where younger residents were a little bit happier with the acceptance of residents of all backgrounds than older residents. We don't see differences by gender, and by race and ethnicity, we do see that Black residents were less satisfied than white residents. So turning to the sense of overall safety, we see some slight differences by geography. Wards 1 and 8 were reported feeling safer, 24% compared to 17 to 19% across the rest of the city. And younger residents felt a little bit safer than older residents, 24% versus 17 and 18%. We see some slight differences by gender. This is completely common. I think every single client that I've ever seen the report for has found something similar where women tend to feel less safe than men. And then by race and ethnicity, Black and African American residents felt slightly safer than white residents. Okay. So I'm going to move off of the community characteristics and the overall satisfaction for a moment. And we asked residents, just in their own words, what do they love about living in Akron, and what is the one thing they would like to see changed in Akron? And we created this word cloud just to kind of give you a sense of it. So what people love are the parks, the city, the family, the community, and what residents want changed, and this largely aligns with the community characteristics questions: crime, safety, the police, housing. Housing, by the way, is an issue facing every single city in the country right now. So it's not surprising to me to see this here as well. Okay. We have a space at the end of the survey for custom questions or rotating survey questions, and these are questions that can be changed out from time to time. And for your first cycle, there were questions about city communications. So we asked, how they'd like to receive news and information about the city through social media. We asked them how they would like to receive news and information about the city, and most people chose social media. I did want to emphasize that about a third of our respondents came from social media, so it's not surprising that that would be the top response here as well. But it can also just give you a sense of the other avenues that you might want to use, like local TV channels or the city website. And then we asked what types of communications would you most like to see from Akron, and community news and events was at the very, very top. 68% of residents said they would like to see that. And then there was a question, which social media platform do you use most? Facebook was the top at 72%, followed by YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. In terms of preferences of how to contact the city and city departments, it was pretty evenly split between phone and email, 54% and 53%, and 32% would like text as well. So the rest of this report includes just a copy of the questionnaire, just so you can see what the questions are on it. I'm not going to go through all of those, but I did just want to stop and see if there are any questions.
Mr. Malik, excuse me, I came over so I could see the presentation better. So. Thank you. Mr. Malik.
Thank you. And Dr. Levenstein, thank you so much for this presentation. We had a similar presentation at my ward meeting earlier last month, and the residents really appreciated it, and it's really helpful to have this level of data. I did, and I say this with all due respect, I did just want to get your sense on this overall top line number, because it is kind of strange for me to see kind of, high negative numbers on certain things like safety, but then that overall number is just 3% dissatisfied. And, we just had a poll that was released today by the Beacon Journal that showed, people pretty evenly divided on whether they think the city is on the right track or the wrong track. So again, it's not to, I appreciate the work that went into this, but how do you arrive at that very, very small number on the overall score when it's like there's high dissatisfaction levels on safety and other things?
That's a great question. And I would say that, so the community characteristics are combined together. So a lot of the low numbers that you see there are kind of watered down a little bit in our overall satisfaction score. Overall quality of life is also pretty important. So for example, 53% said they'd be likely to live in Akron 5 years from now, and about a third said that they were happy with their overall quality of life. The way that it's calculated, it kind of takes, these individual and very, very serious concerns, but it kind of weights it down a little bit because we're asking so much about the community characteristics and a lot of different facets of it. But that's a great question. And I think in terms of making plans and trying to figure out, where do we go from here, looking at those community characteristics is really going to help you kind of target your efforts and see kind of, okay, so what now? What do I do with this? I'm a data person, but I'm also a big believer in not providing data just for the sake of providing data. Data should be used for a purpose, and the community characteristics, I think, are kind of the inputs to the output that is overall satisfaction.
Thank you for the explanation, and I do just want to underline that I'm thrilled at the level of data that we have here, and I think it will be helpful in a lot of those decision-making processes.
Great.
Mr. Mobian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious, I know when we went to the luncheon today, I think I heard that the 500 respondents were not necessarily representative of the city, but I could have been wrong. You said that you tapped into the various races, ethnicity, as well as, sexual orientation. You had 630, no, you didn't get that. So 632 respondents. Can you break that out in terms of how is it reflected in terms of different groups? And how did you intentionally get those groups respond to this?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Are you asking about the overall counts by race, gender, ethnicity, and age?
Yeah, as much as you can tell me about the respondents, the composition of the people that responded, the 632.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I don't have these numbers in front of me exactly. I have the overall counts of individuals, but we weighted them so that there would be more representative. So the way that we did it was to start out with these buckets, these targets. So using quota sampling, we said, okay, we want this many men, this many women, this many people above the age of 55, this many, Latino people, et cetera, et cetera. Once we reached those targets, we did have some imbalances because it's never perfect, right? We get who we get, we reach those targets, and then we weight the data to further adjust it. I'm happy to provide you with the weighted and the unweighted counts, though, of individuals who participated, so you can see that.
You indicated on one of the slides there was no difference by race or ethnicity. And was that in the satisfaction area or what? What area was that?
Yes, that was in the overall satisfaction. It was 57% for both.
And you said 62%, and I'm not surprised that people that are well off, that are doing well, that are pretty satisfied. When you have the resources, the education, you can compensate for whatever the city doesn't have to offer and so forth. Job-wise, the individuals who were employed in white-collar jobs versus blue-collar, and I'm sure you had some unemployed folks, hopefully, in the mix.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that question.
The employment status. You had white-collar individuals, blue-collar, I hope. Did you have unemployed people or underemployed people in your survey?
I'll have to check, but I believe we ask employment status as well. So we should have at least a few who are unemployed. We don't differentiate between blue collar or white collar jobs. I think we differentiate between full-time and part-time.
But you talk, when you identify those that are more affluent than others, you just went strictly by income, or what kind of status did you use?
Yeah, we used household income.
Oh, that was it, okay. And I see that those individuals, you said 22% of the folks were not necessarily satisfied with parks and recreation. Are those the same people that were kind of not really satisfied in living in the Akron area?
That's a great question. There is an online dashboard that can kind of let you slice and dice the data in lots of different ways. Lauren, do you happen to have the dashboard handy?
I do, Rachel. If I share my screen, maybe you can guide me through and we can show how to look at that.
Yeah. Great.
So we're looking at
Parks and Rec, the Parks and Recreation job.
do I click the cross tab first?
Yes.
And then Parks and Rec,
Yeah, so
right here.
that's the one. Yep. And then you select on the left-hand side. Yep. You select the other question, which was what was the other question you wanted to look at?
No, I'm just curious, because the folks that are not satisfied with living in Akron, I was just curious if those individuals were not satisfied with the park and recreational services. I mean, we have great parks, and we have a lot of other resources around that area. Just curious as to whether those were the same folks that were not satisfied with living in Akron. Because you will find in Ward 8, which is a ward I live in and several other folks in here live in, it's a very affluent community with great parks. The crime rate, for the most part, I think is less than many of these wards. So you do have a lot of people that are very satisfied. I can walk my ward probably any time, day or night, and not feel unsafe. But then there are other parts, and you go to wards, probably 3, 5, and you identified 2 as one of the lowest wards that was least satisfied with living in Akron. I was kind of curious about that. We have a lot of immigrants living in Ward 2, and I don't know. Do you have a high crime rate in your ward, Phil? Is Ward 2 a high crime rate? I didn't know that. Yeah.
You can also filter it by geographic area. So Lauren, if you want to pull down the geographic area, no, yeah. And you can do wards 1 and 8 or 2 and 5. It'll actually filter the data so you can check that out. You can check out that relationship between overall quality of life and satisfaction with Parks and Rec. And you can do it for each of the separate wards. So I know we have limited time, so I just want to make sure that you have this tool in your toolbox and you can take a look at it, and you can talk to Lauren about getting some more support for it as well.
Sure. Anyway, thank you very much. There's a lot of good information. I just need to ask a lot of questions to fully understand, how we can better improve things in our city. But thanks a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate all the questions.
Yeah, I think some of those are great questions, and obviously Emily and the team have access to this dashboard and the data to be able to look at it a little bit more closely. So if you had some specific questions, I'm able to help that team understand how to pull the data for you. So you can pass them through that team, and we'll support that.
Okay. Are there other questions? The chair had to leave, so the assistant chair is in the chair. Are there other questions? So Emily, you're going to have to fully help me understand all of this. I mean, there's a lot of data, which is great, and just trying to understand and unpack it to see how we can improve things in our city. So it's good to know. If there are no further questions, again, thank you very much for the presentation. I don't see any hands up. No? Okay. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
That is the final committee meeting of the day. Council will meet at 7 p.m. tonight. Thank you.